pleasure to be here. I flew in yesterday from Tel Aviv, Israel, and recall that 10 years ago, here at Singularity in the inaugural class in 2009, that's me over there, if you can believe, a lot more hair. As I was about a year into my role as the chief technology advisor to the president of Israel. Running that role, I spent a lot of time in and around the future of medicine, and was sent out at the end of that year into Silicon Valley to spend time at the inaugural class of Singularity. So it's a great opportunity to come back. This was a formative experience for me. And back at Singularity in 2009, this is the original deck we used into sort of looking into exponential growth in the automotive space. We built a company. I'm a proud founding member in getaround.com, and look at that. That was the iPhone of that day, and we wanted to marry Zipcar and eBay as part of Getaround, which is today a huge market leader globally. And so finishing SU and going back home to work, to continue working for the president, I got the bug, Getaround, and SU gave me that bug of looking for that exponential trend and thinking, how do I make an impact on 1 billion people? And luck, or rather bad luck, had it that a few years later, as I concluded my government role, my mother, who you see here with my third child, this is a couple of years ago in his bris in Tel Aviv, my parents were traveling in China, and my mother fell pretty radically, lost her conscience, broke a couple of ribs. I got a call from my dad. We had to manage that case from afar. My parents luckily bought an iPhone 4S. That was like the newest phone back in the day, and I asked them to take a picture of their CT scan so that I can get consultation in Israel. And in many regards, we might have saved my mother's life through that exercise, getting doctors from Israel to review her CT, and that was a big aha moment for me. I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and for me, having seen sort of almost losing my mom when she was afar in China, was a calling back into the tech space. So I left my government role, and I was looking for the exponential curve. This is somewhere around 2014-15, that could be used in healthcare. And what I saw was the selfie economics. Back in the day, it was very clear. It was turning from about 300 million pictures every 24 hours, so what is today 12 billion images uploaded every 24 hours online, that phone cameras are going to have to get exponentially better, and that hardware is going to be invested by Apple and Google and others, and that opens an opportunity to do what The Economist recently called us in an article, to introduce the era of the medical selfie. So Healthyio was founded with the vision of riding that exponential curve, this selfie economics, if you will, that smartphone cameras are getting so much better that they might present us with the opportunity that with AI, we can turn that embedded camera into a clinical grade scanner. And so that vision, and by the way, when I see those new phone launches worldwide, this is about a month ago, the new iPhone being released, basically, smartphone makers have become camera makers. Look, it's kind of the main feature that comes out in every iPhone launch in the last 5 years has been the power of the camera, the exponential growth of the camera. And we were able to ride that wave and introduce products that are FDA grade that rely on that smartphone camera. So at the founding moment of Healthyio, the founding team basically had 3 principles. We want to introduce those products at clinical grade that would actually cater for a volume of users. So this is not a company that's designed to deal with a premium set of products that would then sort of, prices go down and we'll have everybody use that. But, in this small, we don't want to only serve the people who go into Louis Vuitton or some, other premium product. We want to serve as many people in that mall as we can. That's principle number 1. Principle number 2, everything we do at Healthyio is clinical grade. And Dave's point about FDA safety and efficacy, we believe in that. And we opt to go to the FDA and run 500 people trials time and time again to prove that whatever we do with a smartphone camera is equivalent to what's happening in the lab today with the strictest and most stringent constraints that the FDA puts, and rightfully so. Condition number 3, so clinical grade, dealing with volume, and condition number 3, AI and computer vision. Not sure that many people in the crowd know, but in Israel, that's one of our strengths. Some of the recent developments of the Apple cameras are designed in Israel, Samsung as well, and others. We have a very strong talent in this field, and we felt that if we focus on the camera through AI and computer vision, if we deliver a product that is clinical grade at volume, we can introduce a new type of company in the world. So product number one, the proof of concept, if you will, was the urine test. So urine test answers for volume. That's 1 billion people every year in the top 20 OECD countries. Second most frequently conducted IVD after a blood count. And we're talking about 600 million people with chronic conditions, diabetes, hypertension, different kidney challenges that need to do at least an annual urine test to manage for their disease. We're looking at a pregnancy market, 300 million tests conducted, again, in those top 20 OECD countries every year. And we're looking at about 100 million tests for urinary tract infections that, and I'll share with you in a minute, our experience in that field. So there is volume here. And at the end of the day, how do we consume that urine test today? So this is a video that we've introduced a while back. We go to the doctor, we get a prescription. We then get into the car, we drive into a central location. It can be a Quest lab, a LabCorp, it can be a collection point. We stand in line, we get that urine receptacle, we go into a public urinal, and then this is what women called in our surveys the walk of shame, whereby they walk with a cup full of hot urine and deposit it somewhere. That's how we do urine tests today. And we looked at that, and at the end of the day, at the end of that process, there's a dipstick being dipped with reagents that change colors. And Healthyio is not about reinventing the core products of healthcare. We're about digitizing an inefficient analog process. So we didn't reinvent the dipstick. We're using the same dipstick that has been used in the last, I would say, 30 to 50 years. And at the end of that process, that's the central location, the central lab. Those cups end up in tubes. The tubes go into a device, dips dipsticks, and we get results. And our thinking process was, hey, smartphone cameras are good enough. Can we teach those smartphone cameras to read those color changes that the lab reads in the dipstick with the exact same level of accuracy? Or I shouldn't say with the exact same, I would say within FDA grade accepted tolerance. And I'm happy to share with you guys today that we have indeed about a year ago introduced a new clinical reality. Our product basically allows for people to do this test at home. It's FDA cleared. We actually now have 2 FDA clearances, which I'm going to talk about later. It is the first one to have an IVD grade camera from a smartphone. We're very grateful, by the way, for our live core. Dave, that was here ahead of me, actually paved the way for that kind of conversation with the FDA. It's consumer-centered, and I'll talk about it in the breakout session later. We had the phenomenal algorithm that went into trial number 1, and we failed. And we didn't fail because the AI wasn't good enough. We failed because we weren't guiding people the right way to do that test at home. So usability and layperson usability is a big deal. We failed because of that in our first trial, and we're very happy to be successful at 99% today. That's a big win, and that's a big enabler of our growth. So this new clinical reality, what does it look like? I'll share with you 20 seconds of how it looks like at home.
Say hello to Healthyio. With Healthyio's FDA-approved smartphone urinalysis, patients can now do the same urine test at home.
Scan, you dip, you scan, results go to the EMR, so we're not a consumer-centered company in that sense.
Less effort. Let's talk.
Everything we do integrates into the EMR. We work with HMOs on a white label basis. We do that in Israel, the Netherlands, and the UK, and we're coming to the US market. I'll share that later. What I prepared for you this morning is a couple of case studies of what happens when you actually succeed in doing that. The first one, which is our core product, is ACR testing. You all are familiar with a company called Exact Sciences and a product called ColonGuard that tests for, basically replaces occult blood in stool sampling. We are introducing a similar service in the urine space, in the kidney and renal space. So 73 million people are at risk of CKD in the US alone. That's a big risk. Everybody with diabetes and hypertension is at risk. People need to do an annual test for protein in their urine. What's the effective compliance rate with that test? It's today at 20% here in the US. So only 2 out of 10 people at risk end up doing that test annually. That's a critical test because it actually can predict kidney failure at a very, very early non-symptomatic stage. These are statistics from the National Kidney Foundation. Chronic kidney condition is measured in stages, stage 1 to stage 5. Stage 5 is end-stage renal disease. That's when people have dialysis. And look what happens in stage 3. Stage 3 to 4, which is pretty late in the game, very expensive, very hard to prevent degradation. Why do we have that bump from 5 to 18 and 53? Because people have symptoms. When people have symptoms in the kidney space, it's very late and very expensive. And people aren't doing that test. So we've seen, different HMOs, different groups trying to get people to do the test and failing. We brought in a product called Adherence as a Service, whereby we solve that compliance problem. Instead of calling those people who haven't done the test and saying, and hiring very expensive call centers saying, "Hi, Joe, you haven't done the test, please come to the lab," and ending up with 20 to 30% compliance. What we do is we get a list of all the people who haven't done that test in the last year and a half. It can be 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. We then send N number, that 10,000 of text messages saying, "Hi, Joe, you haven't done the test. Click here. It will end up in your mailbox within 72 hours. You'll do it with a smartphone, and results will go to your physician." So we posed that question and wanted to know how much of a compliance improvement are we going to have when we launch Adherence as a Service. In collaboration with the National Kidney Foundation and with Geisinger Health a year ago, we've proven to do 72% adherence compared to the control arm that had 18%. So when people get it at home and you remind them and they do it with their phone and it's integrated, 7 out of 10 instead of 2 out of 10 do the test. That was, and again, connecting to Dave, that was a study that was published in BMC Nephrology a few months ago. And this is a radical shift. It's a radical change. This product introduced in the UK now shows that we can save the NHS £220 million in every 3-year period, whereby we push that adherence rate higher. And the beauty of this product, and I think that's a critical piece here when you want to commercialize, the beauty of the product is that when we deal with preventive care, the usual, I would say, joining that we present a CFO at a provider, or the coupling is, "Hey, here's a product that might save you, let's say with 70% probability over the next decade, $10 million, but I need you to pay cash out day one, $2 million right now." That's not a good coupling. CFOs don't like that. That's not a good idea. What we've presented with this product is actually pay per protein. We'll take the full risk. Give me that list of 10,000 folks, diabetes, hypertension, who haven't done the test. I'll run that for you. I'll send those 10,000 tests to their home, and you only pay me when I find a protein, so when I solve a problem, not just when I get the adherence higher. So by that, we actually decouple this, I would say, challenge or massive challenge on preventive health, whereby we're saying, don't pay me until I show you the results. Very proud to share that a couple of months ago, we received FDA approval for the new product for ACR, albumin to creatinine, so microalbumin measurements, and we are bringing this product to the market into the US within the year 2020. Now, just to show you before I conclude that case study, this is Medicare Advantage rough score improvement when you find that diabetic patient with albuminuria early on. So essentially, if you're a provider, operating Medicare Advantage plan, you have an $1,800 incentive to find those proteins within that population at risk. And what we've introduced is a system to get us there at a cost-effective way without any down payment, where we take the full risk. So the financial incentive is there, and I actually am a firm believer in building products that have a solid business case that can sort of scale with the existing payment and CPT codes for reimbursement. And as I think everybody in the crowd knows, Medicare Advantage is growing by the number of people as baby boomers get older. So we feel very, very strongly towards the value proposition we're bringing to the market in this space. So that's case number one. That's renal care. That's what happens when you get a urine test to go to a patient's home, increase compliance to 72% out of the average 20 to 25, and get those proteins early on with an existing financial incentive for Medicare Advantage. Another product we've launched in the UK in partnership with Walgreens Boots is what you see here called the DipUTI product. This is actually placed in a Boots branch, now already 300 branches in the UK, going higher within the next few months, we hope. And this product actually solves the problem of 6 million doctor appointments in the UK every year. Women in the UK have symptoms of urinary tract infection. They call in, they get an appointment with their physician within 48 to 72 hours. Within those 48 to 72 hours, they drink cranberry juice. They do different types of things that end up with a very painful feeling and sentiment during those 48 hours. They end up with a physician. They do the same test, the dipstick test, and then they get prescribed if they are positive, by the way. So what we've introduced is actually, since this is clinical grade and results are as good as you get in the lab, these are sold behind the counter at pharmacies in the UK today. You come into the pharmacy and you basically share the symptoms. You buy the kit. There's an exclusion criteria that the pharmacist sort of asks you. You don't have diabetes, you're not pregnant, you haven't had a UTI in the last, I would say, 3 to 6 months. You do that wherever you want. We know that usually we know when this time of sale was and we sort of know when the test was. So usually within an hour, women would do that either at the office or at home or at the toilet, the restroom within the Boots store or Starbucks nearby. You get clinical grade results. You come back, and if you're positive, you get prescribed by the pharmacist. So it's a 30-day process, immediate, that replaces a 72-hour process, and also relieving physician time, which is a big, big case for the NHS in the UK that has put in place a plan they call Pharmacy First, that is, aiming for pharmacies to sort of leverage their strength in terms of local trust, ease of use, and I would say the prominence of the pharmacists within the community. So we actually believe, and unlike sort of a lot of predictions we see around the pharmacy space where what's called clicks will overtake bricks, so people will go online and would sort of skip the pharmacists, we actually believe in the strength of the local pharmacists. We actually believe that they are great caretakers of our health. They know the community, and we actually introduce a process that's called clicks leveraging bricks. So how do we work together? How do we bring digital to serve the existing points of sale? What I want to share with you, I guess, in greater detail in that case study is what happens also when you look at those 6 million UTIs a year. When you get a net promoter score of over 70, which is what we have right now in the UK for this product, when you show that the tech is robust, it can scale, then the NHS or the big providers or healthcare systems that are vertically integrated are interested in supporting that and testing that as part of the healthcare, I would say, core. So while right now women are paying out of pocket in the UK, which is, unlike the US, a very uncommon thing to do in the UK, right? Healthcare is free, no deductible. Women are paying £25 to get that solution within 30 minutes to save that 72-hour timeline. What we're working with the NHS right now is having been rolling this out successfully and scalably. Hey, does this make sense to be state-sponsored? So that's being evaluated right now, and we actually believe that within the next 12 to 18 months, there's a good enough shot that will show those 6 million doctor appointments are not necessary anymore. And you can test with great safety and efficacy at the pharmacy and get treated, because we believe pharmacists are great stewards also of antimicrobial resistance and other dimensions. Now, that's a very tough challenge, because how do you find the right messaging to get women from digital to come into a store? When clicks want to enable bricks, you have to figure out a way to, either through Google search or on Facebook or other areas, get to women when they need it, let them know that there's an opportunity to go to a store and get that treated immediately. What's the right messaging? Is it, skipping pain? Is it, doing it fast? Is it owning your own healthcare? So we've done a lot of work there, and I'm very proud to share that, the numbers are commensurate with where we want them to be in terms of scale, because this is a real problem, and we figured out the way to communicate that to the woman sort of surfing the web and typing in her symptoms over on Google, showing her where the nearest pharmacy is and having her, go out there. The second thing is, which was very surprising, by the way, is that there's a digital conversation ensuing around the product. So women are tagging each other after they've used the product and had their solution sort of resolved. Women did not believe that full cycle will close when they bought the kit. And so we have a lot of positive feedback, basically, and you can see it here on the screen saying, look at Christy Dakin here. This is an open Facebook, so this is not a private information. Tagging her friend saying, why didn't you tell me about this? I had a great experience. So we did not expect that conversation to take place online in open Facebook. So getting from online to offline, bringing people into the branch is getting the right person in the right time, in the right place, and having the core service that's, after a 500 people trial, CE-approved, FDA-approved, without that package, without getting all those things right, it simply doesn't scale. And I'm very happy, our partners with Boots are great partners. This is a statement by Giovanni Monti, the VP of Healthcare Innovation within Walgreens Boots, scaling with us in the UK and hopefully also here in the US as 2020 unfolds. So I want to conclude with a couple of things and share also a bit of news that hasn't been shared before. So about a month ago, we closed our C round, our Series C financing, $60 million raised to actually scale that globally, scale what's working in Israel, in the UK, in the Netherlands, into the US and across Europe. As you saw, the fundamentals and the reimbursement codes are already in place, so we're coming to the market in 2020. I'm very proud to share for the first time today, our US leadership, Paula Leclerc, is our general manager as of yesterday. 15 years of healthcare experience here in the diabetes space with Onduo, the Sanofi-Google joint venture, with Telcare, with Glytech. And very happy also that Mark Becker joined us a couple of weeks back as a VP of Chronic Wound Management, which is another space we're sort of focusing on, because you can imagine as smartphone cameras get better, this is not just going to be a urine play. And we're not a urine company. This is our, if you will, our first product in the market. And so the scale within the market is going to come from those opportunities. Very happy to share that we now have that leadership in place and are coming to the US market in 2020, leveraging this recent Series C. And I'm looking forward to collaborating with the people here in the crowd in making this accessible in the US, partnering with you guys. And again, we'll be doing the session after lunch. So I invite you all to come, ask questions, and talk. We're very happy to share and be transparent on what we're seeing in the world. We're seeing in Japan, in China, Israel, Netherlands, UK, and what is our vision for the US expansion. So thank you very much for having me here this morning. It's great to close the loop from 2009. Thank you.
So, Yonatan, full disclosure, I'm very lucky to be on your board and get to observe some of the inside elements. You really had to crack the nut on reimbursement, the sort of pay-for-protein element, because a lot of digital technologies don't yet have that route. From that lesson and others, what, for folks who are trying to build digital health platforms, what might be some lessons learned?
So I think it really comes with what's your vision when you start the company, right? So when we started the company, we had no pretension of introducing a new pathway, right? So the whole premise behind the medical selfie is take something that's delivered right now, that the core medical process makes sense, but the way in which we consume it doesn't make sense. So if you sort of look at that, if you look at the market through that lens, the medical process makes sense, means it already has a reimbursement attached. The only question is, how is it delivered? So we look at ourselves as a company that is focused on the delivery mechanism through AI and through what we're doing, and therefore, by that, actually sort of leaving out the question on the CPT and reimbursement, because from the get-go, we're not looking to create a new medical process. And I can say that, within the medical space, there's a lot of stuff that's really working really, really well and doesn't need to be reinvented, but the way in which we gain access needs to be reinvented. So if you focus on that vertical, I think good things come in terms of reimbursement, CPT, and others.
You let off with the exponentials on the smartphone camera. If another couple clicks of Moore's Law and what smartphones can contain, what might be your vision for what's possible in the future medical selfie?
So I guess I'll say three quick things. I think one, those of you who have an iPhone 10 and above, the 3D scanner that you have to open the phone in like a split second, and those of you who have an iPhone 11 now, you can actually experience how far better it is at opening the phone and kind of scanning for your 3D. We believe that's a big, big change as that camera sort of goes into the back and not sort of the front of the phone. There's going to be a lot of applications in the skin domain, in the wound domain, and we're looking very closely at that. The second piece is we believe that somewhere in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see more hyperspectral capabilities, of near hyperspectral capabilities on the phone. And then, you can imagine there's a lot of stuff that you can do with that. And I think the third piece is computation and cloud, because at the end of the day, if you have a great device, but the connectivity doesn't let you sort of leverage that, then it simply doesn't work. So I think one of the main lessons we learned at Singularity back in the day, and we saw with Getaround and others, is this is an envelope of multiple exponentials growing at the same time, right? So cloud computation, phone computation, camera, bandwidth. Fifth generation is a big deal for us. Because if you can do that stuff on the phone, but then you need to sort of wait for 3 minutes for it to go somewhere on the cloud, then nothing really flies. So really sort of looking at the phone on one end, but we're also looking at the envelope around it. And we're very, very confident, because at the end of the day, what we found out is there's nothing better than relying on 12 and 13-year-olds as your kind of, formative technology driver, because that's what we saw with, Snapchat and others that delivered the growth on the camera side. And that keeps on being very, very strong with TikTok and other apps today.
So part of the lesson, if you're building a company into the future, you need to be charting out what's likely to be here in 2 to 5 years on this exponential,
100%.
not to build for 2019.
100%.
All right.
Yeah.
So congrats on what you're doing, and learn
Thank you
from
very
Yonatan.
much.
Thanks, Yonatan.
Thanks.